My name is Martin Klaassen, and welcome to another interview session by the virtual lighting design community. My next guest is Courtney Mark. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Courtney, for the benefit of our viewers, can you introduce yourself? Where
Sure.
are you based? What are you doing?
I have my own practice in Dubai. It's Studio Mark. It was launched 6 months before the pandemic hit, Dubai and the world.
I remember.
And previously I worked for another company here for 6 years, but I've been in the lighting industry for 2 decades now, across New York City, India, and then Dubai. And so now I've been in the region for the last 10 years and trying to make a difference one step at a time. Yeah.
Well, you're obviously one of the driving forces here in Dubai, and for that reason you've also been asked to be part of Light Talks and also be a judge in this year's awards. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about your involvement in Light Talks, where you talked about the dark sky and all that, and maybe also something about the awards, without revealing who won. But
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
Dark skies, I've been an advocate for very many years. An advocate since 2019, but I've been a member since as far back as, even being in New York City. I originally am from Arizona, where dark skies was actually a thing, from a very small town, Carefree, Arizona, which used to have a dirt road from Scottsdale all the way to Carefree. So growing up and seeing the Milky Way, it's basically 1 in 3 people in the world have never seen the Milky Way. It was always quite fascinating to me as a designer. My background is in art, and then I did interior architecture, and then I found lighting in 2003 in New York is where I met my first, my mentor in lighting, and my first job, which I was at for about 8 years. But lighting in the Middle East, I think I've always been a dark sky kind of sensitive because of growing up in such a kind of rural place and really being very sensitive to light. But when I moved to New York, the city of lights is when it first kind of hit me, how much, like, where are the stars? And then moving to India, certain places I would visit, I could see the stars, and certain places I couldn't. And then moving to Dubai, it was like almost what I call an out front assault. I call like what happens in Dubai with the lighting a bit like Battle of the Bands.
Right.
Everything's a competition, who's biggest, who's brightest, who's most impactful. And that's not only facade lighting, that's actually just the signage brightness levels, the contrast. I don't know if you've ever driven into Vegas, for example.
Yes, I've been in Vegas.
So in Vegas, when you drive in from LA, you drive in and you literally, and I've had to do this a few times, is I put my sunglasses on. Because it's so, the contrast from going from rural desert and to signage at that level is just, it's blinding. It's like just walking, it's like walking from a dark space outside in Dubai is like natural daylight. So over the years, I've been working on projects, and I specialize in hospitality. So working on projects that are very rural, and Oman, KSA, and I've started to kind of bring the dark sky principles to the forefront of my own personal designs, not by client request, but to do the right thing as a lighting professional. And then I started to really kind of get into like, why isn't dark sky, IDA here, for example. So there's a group of us that are starting, to talk about the next steps and really trying to develop a chapter for the Middle East. It's a process, and it takes a village, and a war is fought by an army, and so it's not a me thing, it's a we thing. And I think it's just very important to realize that it's not just the lighting designer's responsibility; it's everybody's responsibility together.
It's juggling a bit, because on one hand you want to create light, but on the other hand
Exactly.
you want to avoid light.
Exactly. So it's a delicate layering effect, and it depends on the outcome. So not all my clients come on board. Some of them are like, no, we want a media facade, and that's what we want. So give us a media facade. you know, I mean, you're a lighting designer. You have to do what your clients ask. Yeah.
In the products that were judged, I don't know if you judged projects or products.
So we did the.
Was there anything related to the dark sky that you could
Yes, actually, well, Thorn obviously has their entire exterior range of tunable white adjustment that happens. So they have their, and for me, that's amazing because, you know, in 2020, IDA changed basically their criteria. It used to be 2700K, and now that's 2200K actually recommended. And Thorn is one of the first people that I've seen pick up on the 2200K for street lighting. What's amazing about it is because, you know, it follows the IES and IDA 5 principles. You know, task, you know, making sure it's targeted, useful, colored, controlled, dimmable, right? These are all the things we work with. But they've taken it the step farther in that, you know, when it's not used in the middle of the night, it goes very, very warm and then it's dimmed down to about 30 to 20% of the light output, because in the middle of the night, you don't need the same light levels you do at, you know, 8 p.m. or to see. So, I mean, you know, the technology has changed. It used to be, you know, that metal halide was the best and the best to see roadways. Now that's sort of all changed. So
that leads me to the themes that are being applied in this fair, which are the innovation, the sustainability, and the integration of, I guess, architecture or smart technologies.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? How do you see that reflect in your own work, or maybe in general in the lighting industry?
I think my own work, you know, I always use control systems, of course. I use a lot of tunable white products for certain applications. I'm a firm believer in not disrupting your circadian rhythm, how that really does affect you, how that affects the guests that are coming to the hotel properties, what time zone they're coming from. Obviously, there's a lot of pushback from the design community. The clients, it used to be a cost factor. Now they're starting to come a little bit more on board with the idea. So I'm really in tune with that. I really want to make sure that spaces transition naturally. People aren't as disrupted by, you know, jet lag and these things that are bothersome for any, you know, operator. Really, it ruins their experience.
Okay, so now we live in a post-pandemic area now. We can, I think we have arrived there, but over the previous couple of years, our lives have been severely disrupted by the whole COVID thing. So my question to you now is, how does it impact you today? Have you changed the way you do your projects? Has it changed the way you work?
Well, like I said before, I mentioned briefly, I started 6 months before COVID hit. But ironically, my business model was always to be a work from everywhere model, where I would work with designers that I've worked with or trained previously all over the world that not necessarily wanted to live in Dubai, for example. So we started that working from home methodology to begin with. It has, though, affected me, I think, personally, because it was my choice, and then you were forced. And then you get cabin fever. Like everybody gets cabin fever. You kind of need to get out of your realm. So you start searching for the cafes and the places that you can go, like what's a co-working space that works, because you still crave as a designer that interaction between your other designers, between people, within manufacturers. I mean, people crave connections, so you can't do everything online. But you know, what I did notice is, you know, how much time I wasted just driving to all my meetings alone, right? And if I don't need to be in a face-to-face meeting, how much that sort of technology really is an advantage of my time, effort, and paying of gas.
I've heard that for some of your colleagues as well. Right?
Yeah, and just gas. I mean, just like, you know, and like instead of 3 hours to go to one meeting, I'm spending 30 minutes to an hour on the meeting and then up to the next meeting. So I think it's been like very efficient in the way that we work.
You mentioned connection. Now we've created this virtual lighting design community now as a means to connect with our community.
Yeah.
So you know about it. Can you give me a bit your feedback of what you think of this new platform, how it links people together? Not only the lighting designers, but the idea is also to bridge with people with a vested interest in lighting.
I think it's great though, because I think it brings a lot more people to the table, and it depends on your region and where you are, and we all have our local communities, but you kind of get stuck in your own connection with the people that are around you. I think it's a great idea, because I think being able to connect to people all across the world, talk about lighting, which we're all very interested in, talk about the new technologies, bring the platforms on, maybe not disrupt your workday, depends on what time, this is happening, but I think it's a great idea, and I think it's, so far from what I've seen, I think it's fun, it's interactive, you get to kind of reconnect with ex-colleagues all over the world. I mean, I think it's great,
Now, finally, I would like to ask you, what drives Courtney Mark to get out of bed in the morning? What's your passion? What's your drive? What sort of message do you want to bring out there?
Oh God, well, I guess.
Don't hold back.
No, I just, I'm a lighting designer, obviously not for the money. I'm a lighting designer because I have a pure passion for light, art, culture, people, psychology, the way people move through space. And what's kept me in lighting for 20 years is being able to create different environments and scenarios, and to be able to be creative in a field that I love. And what gets me up every morning is I love my job. And I'm very lucky to say that. So I think, creativity, the detailing that goes into that, experience in culture, obviously we work all over the world, but I love to just completely engulf myself in the local communities, and whether that be in Bahrain, whether that be in Oman, whether that be in KSA, I do a lot of traveling, and I really enjoy that part of, being a designer and a creative, and just experience people and life. So,
Courtney Mark, thank you very much for sharing.
Thanks for having me.